الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي قد آتيتني من الملك وعلمتني من تأويل الأحاديث فاطر السماوات والأرض أنت وليي في الدنيا والآخرة توفني مسلما والحقني بالصالحين ذلك من أنباء الغيب نوحيه إليك وما كنت لديهم إذ أجمعوا أمرهم وهم يمكرون وما أكثر الناس ولو حرصت بمؤمنين وما تسألهم عليه من أجر إن هو إلا ذكر للعالمين صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم. Continuing the Tafseer and the commentary of Surah Yusuf, verse 101. The first part of this verse we commentated on last week, and in great detail we covered the messiahs of dreams. The dream which was seen by Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam. Rabbi, O my Rabb, qad ataytani min al-mulk. Indeed, you have granted me a part of kingship. وَعَلَّمْتَنِي مِنْ تَأْوِيلِ الْأَحَادِيثِ, and taught me the interpretation of dreams. فَاطِرَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, O creator of the heavens and the earth. أَنْتَ وَلِيِّي فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ, you are my protecting friend in this world and in the hereafter. Then Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam made the dua, which I want to talk about today. توفني مسلما وألحقني بالصالحين. Grant me death in a state of obedience. Notice the tarjuma and the translation here of Muslima, obedience. Muslima, Muslim, Islam. It means to submit to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No matter what zamana, what age we live in, Islam, Muslim, means to be obedient to Allah. And Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam made the dua here, "O Allah, grant me death in a state of obedience." Because the death in a state of obedience gains the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we depart from this world, we depart in a manner which is pleasing to Almighty Allah, and that death is a good death. And what counts more than anything in the eyes of Allah is that a person dies in the state of Iman and as a Muslim. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala in another verse of the Qur'an mentions, وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. Do not die but as a Muslim. Do not die but as a Muslim. Allah did not mention there, وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُؤْمِنُونَ. Do not die but as a mu'min, but die as a Muslim. Why? Because you can get believers, but they're not obedient believers. They're not faithful believers. There are many believers in the world, in mu'mineen, but they're not practicing. They're not devout. And if they're not practicing, they're not devout, then yes, they can be called a mu'min, but Muslim is when they are obedient. And that's why Allah mentions, when you come to me as an obedient believer. Why? Because a believer is got iman, but his whole life is void of amal, deeds, faraid. So then, unfortunately, there's a great chance that after he dies, because he's got no amal to his name, no good deeds, there's a great chance that he will be sent to the fire of hell for punishment. And Therefore, Allah Ta'ala does not want that. So that's why He says, وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. Don't die but as a Muslim. Come with me in a state of obedience. Come to me in a state that you're a practicing Muslim. So that I don't have to send you to the fire of hell to get punished and to be purified and then bring you back to Jannah. One is a direct flight and one is an indirect flight. I want to go to India, so we take an indirect flight via Dubai, via Doha, via Amman, via where? Via Qatar, and then we go to India. We always go for the cheap ticket, so because via is cheaper, so we go for that. But it's a direct flight and it's only costing £300. You know what? I'm going to go to the direct flight. I don't have to get out. So here, وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ تَوَفَّنِي مُسْلِمًا. Allah is saying, I want you to go direct flight straight to Jannah, not via Jahannam. Not via Jahannam. If you go via Dubai, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 6 hours, after that they'll probably give you a hotel. Sometimes people have issues or they've been there in the airport for about 10 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours, 15 hours. And how hard it is for them. Mental trauma. As soon as they reach the destination, they're so tired, it takes at least 2 to 3 days to recover. Those people have been in that predicament. But at least you're going to get some sort of rahat and aram and comfort, whether you're in Dubai, whether you may be for sin. But this via Jahannam to Jannah, that via is not for 6 hours, you see. It's not for 2 hours. It's not for 8 hours. 1 day of the hereafter is equivalent to 1,000 days of this world. As one said, 1,000 years of this world. So if someone says it doesn't matter, I'll go to Jahannam for a while, and then it's okay, it doesn't matter. It does matter because we will not be able to bear it. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in His infinite mercy and compassion, Allah is saying, I don't want you to do this via trip from Jahannam to Jannah. Come direct to Jannah. And direct to Jannah is Iman and Amal Salih. So Iman, you're a mu'min. Amal Salih, you're a Muslim as well at the same time. That's why in many verses of the Qur'an Kareem, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, when He talks about Iman, Amal Salih. Wal Asr. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala takes the oath of time. And then He mentions, Innal insana lafi khusr. Indeed, human being is at a great loss. Except illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat. Except for those who believe and do good deeds. So Iman is there, Amal Salih is there. Why is Amal Salih? Because Amal Salih is very, very important in order to gain entry into Jannah immediately. They call it in the Dars format, Dukhul Awwali. Similarly in Surah والتين والزيتون وطور سينين وهذا البلد الأمين لقد خلقنا الإنسان في أحسن تقويم ثم رددناه أسفل سافلين إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات. But those who believe وعملوا الصالحات and do good deeds. So that's why it's very, very important. And that's why the dua made by Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, he's a Nabi, subhanallah. And yet he's making this dua. And a Nabi cannot commit a sin. Yet he's still making this dua, oh Allah, grant me death in a state of obedience. This is ta'lim for the ummah, that we constantly make this dua, tawaffani muslima. Tawaffani muslima. Tawaffani muslima. Oh Allah, grant me death as a Muslim. Another dua, Allahumma thabbitna ala al-iman wa amitna ala al-iman wa ahshurna yawm al-qiyamati ma'a al-iman. Oh Allah, keep us steadfast upon iman And when we depart from this world, we depart with Iman. And oh Allah, resurrect us on the day of Qiyamah with Iman. Because who knows on the day of Qiyamah, Allah Tabarak, we are hoping, right, I'm going to be with a group of the believers, Hizbullah, inna Hizbullah al-Muflihun. But then suddenly Allah Ta'ala said, no, but you don't belong there, you belong to the other Jamaat. You belong to the other group. Okay, I had Iman. Your Iman was not accepted. That's why constant effort is required to make effort upon the Iman, and that is through Amal Salih. The more Amal Salih we carry out, it strengthens the Iman. It strengthens the Iman. And the less Amal Salih we carry out, that Iman becomes weak, and it goes very close to kufr. That doesn't mean the person becomes a kafir, but it goes very close to kufr. So you have to be very, very careful. That's what keeps the Iman healthy and strong. Amal Salih. So, always make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, keep me steadfast upon Iman and Islam, and when I depart from this world, I depart with Islam. وَأَلْحِقْنِي بِالصَّالِحِينَ, and include me among your pious bondsmen. I want to be in the company of the pious people, righteous people. We talked about Iman and Islam. Another way of protecting Iman and Islam is to be in the company of the pious people. Who's making this dua again? Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, a Nabi of Allah, and he's making dua. It's for our ta'aleem and our education. If you're not with the right people, then you're going to think wrong. Then we're going to start thinking wrong. We're going to start behaving wrong. Our concept and our ideologies will be wrong. Why? Because of the wrong company, the wrong people. If we see the right people, we sit with the right people, we hear the right things, then we'll be able to think in the right manner. We'll be able to have the right concept, right ideologies, and that will inshallah keep the Iman in our heart strong. But as soon as we choose wrong people with incorrect beliefs, life of sin and guna, especially in this day and age where an effort is made to normalize everything, normalize guna, normalize sin, normalize the disobedience to Almighty Allah. It's not a big deal, no issue. Allah. No issue. For a mu'min, a true believer, one who has connection with Allah, even for a second displeasing Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah Akbar, it makes the heart tremble. It makes the heart tremble. Not being able to carry out any command of Allah makes the heart tremble. Once verses were revealed, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullah haqqa tuqatih. Or those who believe, fear Allah the manner He should be feared. According to the right of Allah, fear Allah. Allah ke haqq ke mutabik Allah se daro. When this verse was revealed, Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu was sitting and his back became paralyzed. This verse revealed, fear Allah according to His right, according to the manner in which Allah wants you to fear Allah. How am I going to be able to fulfill this command of Allah? That I have to fear Allah according to His right, His haqq. I'll never be able to fulfill this. He was unable to stand up. The gathering of the Prophet ﷺ took place. And as per usual, Prophet ﷺ inquired. He told me, look, which Sahabi is not present? Okay, where is this Sahabi? Where is this Sahabi? Where is that Sahabi? From this we also learn, it's also Imam, mashallah, Imam's responsibility, that if he was to say, why are you not in Salah today? I didn't see you in Fajr, I didn't see you in Zuhar, I didn't see you in Asr, I didn't see what else. He's got the responsibility. Because it's the responsibility of the Imam to look after the Muqtadi as well. Look after the muqtadimi, look after the iman and the Islam. So if he notices there's some weakness in this department, why are you not here? What's happened? Why have you not come? They could have a valid reason, but it's a responsibility. Imam obviously is Imamul Anbiya, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as per usual, in the majlis, he's inquiring, where is Abu Bakr? Nobody is here. One Sahabi then replied by saying, Ya Rasulullah, this verse which was just revealed, Ya ayyuhalladhina muttaqullah haqqa tuqatih, that fear Allah according to His right, it affected Abu Bakr Siddiq to that manner that he became paralyzed on his back. He's unable to get up. The reason being is because we will not be able to fulfill the right of Allah. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam remained silent, and it was a good question, good concern. And then Prophet remained silent, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after a while, revealed this verse, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَسْتَطَعْتُمْ فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Fear Allah according to your ability. The rest, the shortcoming, Allah will forgive. When this verse was revealed and it was conveyed to Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala, then he felt a sigh of relief. Then he was able to move about a bit, and then he stopped. So basically, not being able to act upon the command of Allah, the Sahaba would get actually physically ill. Physically ill. I can't carry this out. How am I going to do it? How am I going to answer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of Qiyamah? Subhanallah. That is Iman. If I'm unable to carry this amal out, what am I going to say? Me and you, we find excuses. We find excuses not to carry out the commands of Allah. The Sahaba, if they're unable to carry out, what's going to happen? If I die in this state, what will happen? This is it. Tawaffani muslima walhiqni bis salihin. And include me among your pious men. In another verse, Allah mentions, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullah wa kunu ma'as sadiqin, and be with the truthful. Be with the truthful. In order to get close to Allah, two things are very important. Kitabullah and Rijalullah. Kitabullah and Rijalullah. You need the book of Allah, take guidance from the book of Allah, the Qur'an Kareem, and Rijalullah, the men of Allah. The men of Allah, the shuyukh, the ulama, the pious and righteous people who will guide you towards the right path. Because the Qur'an Kareem teaches us the art of living. Qur'an Kareem teaches us, it's not just a book of nasihat and advice. This Qur'an Kareem is hudan lin-nas, guidance for the whole of mankind, and teaches us the art of living. You want to be a good human being, study the Qur'an and implement the Qur'an in your lives. At one time, the Muslims had izzat and honor because they have Qur'an in their lives. Qur'an in their lives. And now we have become humiliated because we have become Tariq al-Qur'an. Tariq al-Qur'an means left the Qur'an, left the teachings of the Qur'an, and now we have become Zaleel and humiliated everywhere in the world. Whether we're a majority or minority doesn't mean anything to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Once we leave the fundamentals of Islam, the precious teachings of the Qur'an, is Allah's promise, will be humiliated and disgraced. And that's why the Anbiya, when they made this dua, it was not just lip service, it meant a lot. Tawaffani muslima wa alhiqni bis salihin. Grant me death in a state of obedience and include me among your pious men. From this verse we learn in the dua, it teaches us that the most fortunate occurrence that could happen to a person is to die with Iman in Islam. May Allah tabarak wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq, inshallah, to be steadfast upon our Iman in Islam, and also pray to Allah that we're in good company. Always be in good company. Always. It's our duty to look for good people. And who are the pious people? By looking at them, it reminds you of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are the pious people. By looking at them, it reminds you of the hereafter. These are the people, these are the company that we need to adopt. And by looking at people, it reminds you of the dunya, stay away. How for your business, that's fine, up to then. Otherwise, stay away. If you want akhirah hereafter, sit in the company of those people who are close to Allah. When the Anbiya used to make this dua, then me and you are more important for us to carry out this amal. May Allah Ta'ala give us a tawfiq. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi. Subhanakallah wa bihamdihi.